The USS Harbinger moved silently through the quantum fold, traveling distances that would take conventional ships years to cover. Commander Frank Miller stood beside Captain Alan Shepard on the bridge, watching as the ship's advanced sensors gathered data on the Hegemony home system. "We'll exit fold in 30 seconds, announced the navigation officer. "Stealth systems engaged." Frank felt a slight vibration as the ship transitioned back to normal space. The main display activated, showing their position just outside the Hegemony's central solar system. What they saw left everyone speechless. 3 massive black vessels, each easily 10 times the size of the largest Hegemony ship, were positioned around the system's main planet. The vessels had distinctive red energy patterns flowing across their hulls, matching Vexeler's description of draconian ships. "Life signs on the planet?" Shepard asked. "Minimal," reported the sensor officer. "Population centers show significant damage. I'm detecting approximately 20% of expected life forms." Frank studied the draconian ships. "They're just sitting there, not attacking, not moving. Almost like they're waiting for something," Shepard agreed. "Run a complete analysis of their hull composition and energy signatures." For several hours, the Harbinger observed from a safe distance, collecting data on the invaders. Dr. Gordon worked furiously in the ship's laboratory, analyzing everything they could detect about the mysterious vessels. "Incoming transmission," the communications officer suddenly announced. "It's on all frequencies directed at our position." Shepard and Frank exchanged alarmed looks. "They've detected us? How?" "Unknown, sir. They shouldn't be able to see through our stealth systems." "Put it on screen," Shepard ordered. The display changed to show what appeared to be a human woman with striking red hair and unusual golden eyes. Frank felt a chill as he realized this was no human. "Earth vessel," she said, her voice melodic, but with an unnatural undertone. "We've been expecting you." Shepard straightened his uniform. "This is Captain Alan Shepard of the USS Harbinger. Who am I addressing?" "I am Sentinel Kira of the Draconian Collective. We observed your interaction with the Hegemony deception. It was amusing." "Why have you attacked the Hegemony worlds?" Frank asked. The Sentinel smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Attacked? No. We are liberating systems that have suffered under Hegemony lies for centuries. The surviving population has already joined our collective." "Joined willingly?" Shepard pressed. "Of course. Once they understood the benefits of our neural network, resistance was minimal." Frank felt his stomach tighten. "Neural network? You mean mind control?" The Sentinel's expression hardened slightly. "Such primitive terminology. We offer unity, purpose, advancement. The Hegemony offered only stagnation through fear." "And what do you want with Earth?" Shepard asked directly. "Your species intrigues us. You saw through the Hegemony deception where hundreds of others failed. You possess technological innovation that suggests potential value to the collective." Her golden eyes seemed to stare directly at Frank. "We will be visiting your system soon to evaluate this potential." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. "That wasn't a request," Frank said quietly. "It was a notification." Shepard nodded grimly. "Prepare for emergency jump back to Earth. We need to warn them immediately." As the Harbinger prepared to return, Dr. Gordon rushed onto the bridge. "Captain Commander, you need to see this." He activated a secondary display showing analysis results. "I've been studying their ships and there's something very strange about them." "Strange how?" Frank asked. "Their technology is advanced, yes, but inconsistent. Some systems show quantum-level engineering we can barely understand, while others are surprisingly conventional." Gordon highlighted sections of the display. "And look at these energy patterns. They're designed to be visible, intimidating." Shepard frowned. "What are you suggesting?" "I think we're seeing another bluff, but a more sophisticated one." Gordon pointed to specific readings. "These Draconians have some advanced technology, but they're projecting an appearance of being far more powerful than they actually are. Just like the Hegemony did, but better." Frank considered this. "So the galaxy is full of species pretending to be more dangerous than they really are?" Is anyone telling the truth out there? That's the question, isn't it? Gordon replied. Back on Earth, the Defense Council reviewed the Harbinger's findings with growing concern. The footage of Sentinel Kira was particularly disturbing. If their neural network technology is real, they represent a fundamentally different threat than the hegemony, President Clark noted. Admiral Vexilor, who had been granted temporary asylum, looked defeated. The Draconians have been moving through the outer systems for centuries, absorbing populations into their collective. We exaggerated our power to keep species from allying with them. General Martinez leaned forward. Dr. Gordon believes their power projection is also partially a bluff, that they're not as overwhelming as they want us to believe. Even if that's true, Frank pointed out, they've still conquered the hegemony worlds with minimal resistance. President Clark stood up, addressing the room. Then we need to present a united front. If these Draconians respond to shows of strength, we'll give them one they won't forget. Over the next 2 weeks, Earth prepared for the anticipated Draconian arrival. But instead of just military preparations, President Clark initiated something unexpected. She invited representatives from all former hegemony worlds, those not yet conquered by the Draconians, to come to Earth. The hegemony maintained power through division and deception, she explained to Frank during a private meeting. We'll counter the Draconians with unity and truth. When 3 Draconian vessels finally appeared at the edge of the solar system, they found not just Earth's fleet waiting for them, but ships from 27 formerly subjugated species, all arranged in a defensive formation. Sentinel Kira's face appeared on communication screens throughout the assembled fleet. This is unexpected, she admitted, her golden eyes narrowing. You formed an alliance? Not an alliance, President Clark responded from Earth Command. A coalition of free worlds, each maintaining their independence while working together for mutual defense and prosperity. Something neither the hegemony nor your collective offers. You cannot resist the inevitable progress the collective represents, Kira insisted, though Frank noticed a hint of uncertainty in her tone. We're not interested in resistance, Clark replied calmly. We're interested in genuine cooperation. Your collective absorbs and erases. Our coalition connects while preserving what makes each species unique. And if we choose to take what we want by force? Kira challenged. Captain Shepard, commanding the Harbinger at the front of the coalition fleet, smiled. You're welcome to try. But fair warning, we've analyzed your ships thoroughly. Your weapons aren't nearly as powerful as you want us to believe, and your hulls aren't nearly as impenetrable. A tense silence followed. Frank, standing on the Harbinger's bridge beside Shepard, held his breath. The Draconians had conquered the hegemony through fear and the perception of overwhelming power. Now that bluff was being called. Finally, Sentinel, Kira spoke again. Perhaps there is value in discussion before any hasty actions are taken. President Clark's response was gracious but firm. We welcome dialogue with the Draconian Collective as equals. Our representatives can meet on neutral territory to explore potential areas of cooperation. As the immediate threat of invasion faded, Frank gazed at the assembled coalition fleet on the display. Dozens of species, all previously kept separated, and intimidated by hegemony lies now standing together. You know what's ironic? He said to Shepard. When the hegemony first challenged us, we laughed at their bluff. Now the whole galaxy is changing because of that moment. Shepard nodded. Sometimes the most powerful weapon isn't technology or numbers, it's simply the courage to call someone's bluff. Frank smiled. And to offer a better alternative. As negotiations with the Draconians began, Word Spree Captain Samuel Wright stood at the viewport of the Odyssey, his hands shaking as he watched his home world burn. Earth, the cradle of humanity, was being torn apart by weapons he could not understand. Bright beams cut through the blue planet, splitting continents and boiling oceans. 7 billion lives were ending while he watched helplessly from orbit around Mars. Captain, we need to leave now, said Lisa Morgan, her voice breaking the terrible silence on the bridge. Her dark hair was pulled back tight, and her eyes were red with tears she refused to let fall. Their ships are moving toward Mars. They'll find us soon. Samuel couldn't look away from Earth. Just yesterday he had been celebrating. Humanity had finally developed faster-than-light travel. The Odyssey was one of the first ships equipped with the new drive. They were supposed to be exploring nearby stars next month. Instead, they were witnessing the end of everything they knew. Who are they? Why would they do this? Samuel whispered. The message they broadcast was clear, said Communications Officer Frank Miller. They call themselves the Galactic Council. They said we were a threat that needed to be removed. Called us the prophesied flame that had to die throughout the galaxy. The age of deception was ending. A new era of genuine cooperation, led by the species that had laughed in the face of false power, was just beginning. 1,000 years had passed since humanity found haven. What began as a small settlement of frightened survivors had grown into a thriving civilization. The descendants of the original 1,123 humans now numbered in the millions, living in vast, underground cities that stretched beneath the planet's surface. Amy Harrison walked through the main hall of the Defense Center, her footsteps echoing against the stone floors. As chief strategist for the Haven Defense Force, she spent most of her days in this building. The walls were lined with images of Earth, artistic recreations passed down through generations. No one alive had ever seen the real Earth, but every child on Haven grew up learning about their lost home. Amy stopped at the largest painting, which showed Earth as a blue and green jewel against the blackness of space. Below it were the words that every Haven citizen knew by heart. Remember, rebuild, return. Admiring the view again? Eric Donovan asked as he approached. The chief engineer was carrying a tablet filled with design schematics. Just reminding myself why we do all this, Amy replied. She was a direct descendant of Samuel Wright, the captain who had led the survivors to Haven. Her family had been military leaders for generations, all working toward one goal. Eric nodded. Well, today might be a big step forward in the return part of that motto. The Revenant is ready for its first test flight. Amy followed Eric to the secure elevator that would take them deep below the planet's surface. Haven's cities were built underground to avoid detection from space. On the surface, the planet appeared uninhabited, just wilderness and carefully managed decoy settlements that would appear primitive to any watching eyes. The elevator descended for nearly 5 minutes before reaching the shipyard level. When the doors opened, Amy saw the massive chamber that housed humanity's secret fleet. Dozens of ships were in various stages of construction, but one stood apart from the others. The Revenant was unlike any vessel humans had built before. It was sleek and dark, designed to be invisible to sensors. Its hull was made from materials that absorbed rather than reflected scanning beams. It's beautiful, Amy said. And deadly, Eric added. The Morgan Drive has been completely redesigned. It leaves almost no jump signature now. We can travel through Council space without being detected. The Morgan Drive, named after Dr. Lisa Morgan, who had saved humanity's remnant a millennium ago, had been continuously improved over the centuries. What began as a simple faster-than-light engine had evolved into something the Galactic Council could not match. How soon can we begin Operation Phoenix? Amy asked. The Revenant can depart within the week. The other 5 stealth ships will be ready within the month. Amy turned as Daniel Porter, Haven's leading xenoanthropologist, joined them. I've finished analyzing the latest data from our observation posts, he said. The Council remains unaware of our existence, but they've expanded their territory again. 3 more developing civilizations have been placed under their protection. You mean control? Amy corrected. Daniel nodded. The pattern is always the same. They find a species just beginning to explore their own solar system, then move in, with overwhelming force. The species is given a choice, accept Council rule or be eliminated. Like Earth, Eric said quietly. No, Daniel replied. Earth was different. Based on all our observations over centuries, the Council usually offers assimilation. Earth is one of only a handful of worlds they chose to destroy outright. The 3 walked toward the briefing room where Haven's Leadership Council waited. 20 people sat around a circular table, representatives from all sectors of Haven society. At the head of the table was Director Paul Morgan, another descendant of an original survivor. "The time has come," Paul began as they entered. "For 1,000 years we have hidden and watched. We've built our strength while studying our enemy. Now we must take the next step." Amy took her place at the table and activated the central display. Images appeared showing various council worlds and installations. Operation Phoenix will begin with reconnaissance missions into the heart of council space. The Revenant and our other stealth ships will establish hidden observation posts and communication relays. "What about direct contact with other species?" asked Education Minister Sarah Nelson. "There must be others who resent council rule, too." "Risky," Amy replied. "We don't know who we can trust. For now, we observe only." The meeting continued for hours as they finalized plans that had been developing for centuries. Operation Phoenix wasn't about revenge, not yet. It was about gathering intelligence, establishing a network, and preparing for the day when humanity would finally reveal itself. 1 week later, Amy stood in the Launch Control Center watching as the Revenant prepared for departure. 100 of Haven's best were aboard, including Daniel Porter. Their mission would last 5 years, taking them deep into Council territory. "Are you sure the stealth systems will hold?" she asked Eric, who was monitoring the ship's systems. "As sure as I can be," he replied. "We've tested them against every scanning technology we've been able to replicate from Council ships." The Revenant's engines hummed to life, barely audible despite their immense power. The ship rose slowly in the massive underground hangar, then moved toward the hidden exit tunnel that would take it to the surface. "Revenant to control," came the captain's voice. "We are ready for departure." "Control to Revenant," Amy responded. "You are cleared to proceed. Remember why you go." "For Earth," the captain replied, "and for all those who never made it to Haven." The Revenant exited Haven's atmosphere without incident, its dark hull blending with the blackness of space. Once, clear of the planet, it activated its Morgan drive and vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving almost no trace of its passage. As Amy watched the sensor readings confirm the successful jump, she felt a mixture of pride and anxiety. For 1,000 years, humanity had remained hidden, a ghost civilization growing stronger in secret. Now they were taking their first steps back into a galaxy that thought them extinct. "Phase 1 begins," Eric said quietly. Amy nodded. "And in another 1,000 years, Phase 2. The plan laid out by their ancestors was methodical and patient. First, establish a presence and gather intelligence. Then, infiltrate Council society and discover their weaknesses. Finally, when the time was right, humanity would return in force. The Council had destroyed Earth in a single day, believing they had extinguished humanity forever. But on Haven, that day was remembered as the beginning, not the end. The day humanity learned it had enemies among the stars. The day the long path to vengeance began. As Amy left the control center, she passed the memorial wall where the names of all 1,123 original survivors were inscribed. She placed her hand against the cool stone, a gesture repeated by countless Haven citizens over the centuries. "We remember," she whispered, "and we are coming." 2,000 years had passed since Earth's destruction. Humanity now operated from multiple hidden bases throughout the galaxy. Their technology had advanced far beyond what the Galactic Council possessed, developed in isolation and driven by a single purpose. Commander Jack Bennett adjusted his appearance in the mirror. The biomodification technology made him look exactly like a Zalari, one of the Council's junior member species. His normally tan skin was now pale blue, and his eyes were large and completely black. Even his bone structure had been temporarily altered. "How do I look?" he asked Olivia Mitchell, his security specialist. "Like an ugly blue alien," she replied with a small smile. "The DNA scanners won't be able to tell the difference." Jack and his team were aboard the stealth ship Shadow, orbiting Nexus Station, the diplomatic hub of the Galactic Council. After centuries of observation and careful planning, they were about to take their most dangerous step yet: infiltrating the Council's restricted archives. "Remember," Jack said to his team of 5, We have 8 hours before the biomods start to break down. We get in, access the archives, and get out. No heroics. They had spent years preparing for this mission. Each member of the team spoke perfect Zalari and understood Council customs. Their ship had false identification codes that would register. As a minor diplomatic vessel from the Zalari homeworld, the Shadow docked at Nexus Station without incident. Jack led his team through the massive space station, passing hundreds of different alien species. Nexus Station was a marvel of engineering, a city in space where representatives from all Council worlds conducted their business. "Security checkpoint ahead," Olivia said quietly. "Remember your cover story." The team approached the checkpoint with practiced confidence. A tall, insect-like alien scanned their identification chips and waved them through. They were now in the diplomatic sector of the station, but the archives were in a restricted area several levels below. "This way," Jack said, leading them to a service elevator. According to their intelligence, the elevator would take them close to the archive entrance. When they reached the lower level, the corridors were almost empty. Most Council species preferred the upper levels with their gardens and viewing ports. Down here, only service workers and security personnel were normally present. "Security camera," Olivia whispered, nodding toward a small device on the ceiling. Jack tapped his wrist device, activating a signal disruptor that would loop the camera feed for the next 30 seconds. They hurried past, turning down a narrow corridor that led to an unmarked door. "This is it," Jack said. "Olivia, you're up." Olivia stepped forward and placed a small device against the door's security panel. The device cycled through millions of possible access codes in seconds. Finally, finding the correct one, the door slid open silently. Inside was a large chamber filled with glowing data terminals. The Council's restricted archives, containing the true history of the galaxy and the Council's most guarded secrets. "We have 40 minutes, Jack reminded. "Everyone. Download everything you can find about Earth, the Destruction Order, and any prophecies." The team split up, each taking a different terminal. Jack accessed the main system and began searching for records from 3,000 years ago. Most of the data was in the Council's standard language, which all of humanity's infiltrators had learned over the centuries. "I've found something," Jack said after several minutes. Security footage from the Council meeting where they voted on Earth's fate. The holographic display showed a circular chamber with 7 ornate thrones, one for each of the Council's elder races. They were discussing Earth with obvious fear in their voices. "The human species has developed neural interface technology independently," said one alien with translucent skin. "Our oracles confirm this is the first sign of the Nexus prophecies, fulfillment." "Could we be mistaken?" asked another, this one with 4 arms and a face covered in small tentacles. "We have eliminated 12 species in the past 50,000 years when they showed signs of fulfilling the prophecy," replied the first. "None have come as close as these humans. Their neural technology would allow them to form a collective consciousness while maintaining individual identity." "Then it is decided," said a third alien rising from the central throne. "Earth must be destroyed completely. No survivors can be permitted." Jack felt cold anger as he watched the casual decision to eliminate his ancestral home. But he also felt confusion. "What is this Nexus prophecy they keep mentioning?" "I think I found it," called Olivia from across the room. "It's in the oldest section of the archives." Jack joined her at her terminal. On the screen was an ancient text, translated into modern Council language. "The Nexus prophecy speaks of a species that would unite the divided and bring the Council to judgment," Olivia read. "It says this species would develop a way to connect minds without losing self, creating a new form of consciousness that could, wait, this can't be right, perceive and alter the fabric of reality itself." "They destroyed Earth because of a prophecy?" Jack asked, his voice tight with anger. "Not just Earth," Olivia continued reading. "The Council has been systematically eliminating any civilization that shows signs of fulfilling this prophecy for over 50,000 years. Dozens of worlds, all destroyed because of this fear." Meanwhile, across the station in the Council's high chamber, Archon William Hayes listened carefully to the meeting. To everyone present, he appeared to be a respected representative of the Lorkai, one of the Council's middle-tier species. In reality, he was a human spy who had spent centuries infiltrating the Council through advanced longevity treatments and deep-cover strategies. The anomalies at the edge of Council space continue to increase, reported a military commander. Sensors detect technology of unknown origin, but when investigation teams arrive, they find nothing. William kept his face neutral, but inside he felt pride. Those anomalies were human stealth ships, expanding their observation network throughout Council territory. After 2,000 years of patience, humanity was nearly ready to reveal itself. Back in the archives, Jack's team had downloaded massive amounts of data when suddenly an alarm began to sound. "We've triggered something," Olivia said, working frantically at her terminal. "An ancient security system that wasn't in our intel." "Everyone out now," Jack ordered. "Back to the ship." The team rushed toward the door, but it had sealed shut. Olivia managed to override it, but as they ran down, the corridor security forces appeared at both ends. "There's no way we all make it out," Nicole Parker, the senior infiltrator, said quickly. "I'll create a distraction. The rest of you get to the ship." Before Jack could protest, Nicole ran toward one group of security officers, firing her weapon at the ceiling to create chaos. As the guards focused on her, Jack led the others down a maintenance shaft. "We can't leave her," Jack said, torn between the mission and his teammate. "She knew the risks," Olivia replied grimly. "If we're captured too, her sacrifice means nothing. The data has to reach Haven." With heavy hearts, the team made their way back to the shadow and managed to undock during the confusion. Their ship slipped into stealth mode and vanished from the station's sensors. As they jumped to safety, Jack watched the footage of Nicole's capture. The Council security forces surrounded her, led by a tall, imposing figure that the data identified as Grand Inquisitor Kelthak, descendant of the admiral who had destroyed Earth. "We'll come back for her," Jack promised. "And now we know why they feared us so much. It wasn't just about destroying a potential rival. They saw something in us that terrified them, the fulfillment of a prophecy they've feared for 50,000 years." The shadow disappeared into the depths of space, carrying the secrets that would finally explain to humanity why Earth had been destroyed, and perhaps how the descendants of Earth might fulfill the very prophecy the Council had tried to prevent. 2,500 years after Earth's destruction, humanity had spread across hundreds of hidden worlds. What began as a small community of survivors on Haven had grown into a vast, secret civilization operating in the shadows of the Galactic. Council Fleet Admiral Ryan Collins stood on the bridge of the Vindication, the largest warship ever built by human hands. Through the viewport, he watched as hundreds of vessels moved into formation. The combined human fleet was nearly ready for its final purpose. "Admiral, we've received the encrypted transmission from Haven," said Communications Officer Linda Reeves. "President Catherine Wells has called an emergency council meeting." Ryan nodded. "Put it on screen." The main display flickered to life, showing the secure council chamber on Haven. Catherine Wells stood at the center of the room, her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Though she was over 70, her eyes were sharp and determined. "Admiral Collins, thank you for joining us," Catherine said. "Our deep cover operative has sent critical information. The Council has become suspicious of the anomalies throughout their territory. They've begun connecting the dots." "Have they discovered us?" Ryan asked, his voice tense. "Not yet, but they're getting closer. More concerning is what else our operative discovered. The Council is developing new planet-killer weapons similar to what destroyed Earth, but far more powerful." Ryan felt his stomach tighten. For 2,000 years, the Council had believed they had eliminated humanity completely. That belief had kept them from searching too hard for survivors. If they now suspected humanity's continued existence, everything would change. "What about Agent Parker?" Ryan asked. 500 years had passed since Nicole Parker's capture during the Nexus Station mission, but her sacrifice was still taught to every human child as an example of heroism. "There's been no sign of her since her capture," Catherine replied. "But the data her team recovered has proven invaluable. We finally understand why the Council feared us enough to destroy Earth. The neural interface technology that had triggered The Council's attack had been perfected by human scientists over the centuries. It now allowed humans to connect their minds in a way that enhanced their natural abilities without sacrificing individuality. "We need to move up the timeline," said Peter Martinez, the diplomatic director. He appeared on a separate screen from one of humanity's outer colonies. "If they're building planet killers, they might start targeting systems where they suspect we're hiding." Catherine looked around the council table, meeting the eyes of each representative. Operation Reckoning was planned for the 3,000th anniversary of Earth's fall. That's still 500 years away. "We may not have 500 years," Ryan replied. "My fleet is at 80% of planned strength. We can be ready within 5 years." The council chamber erupted in debate. Some argued for immediate action, while others insisted they needed more time to prepare. The plan to confront the council had been developed over millennia. Rushing it could lead to disaster. "What about the Nexus Protocol?" asked Victoria Wright, the chief scientist. She was a direct descendant of Samuel Wright, the captain who had led humanity to Haven. "It's not fully tested yet. The Nexus Protocol was humanity's most closely guarded secret, based on the neural interface technology that had so frightened the Council. It would allow millions of human minds to connect simultaneously, creating a collective consciousness of unprecedented power." "How long until it's ready?" Catherine asked. 10 years minimum," Victoria replied. "What we're attempting has never been done before." Catherine was silent for a long moment, weighing their options. Finally, she spoke. "We will not rush into this unprepared, but neither can we wait another 5 centuries. Admiral Collins, prepare your fleet for deployment in 10 years. Victoria, you have the same time to complete the Nexus Protocol." "And what of the Council's planet killers?" Peter asked. "Our operative will continue to monitor their development," Catherine said. "If they show signs of deployment, we'll adjust our timeline accordingly." The meeting ended, and Ryan turned away from the screen. 10 years to prepare for a war 3,000 years in the making. He looked out at his fleet again, pride swelling in his chest. Humanity had come so far from those frightened survivors fleeing Earth's destruction. "Admiral," called his executive officer, "we've received a priority message from our operative in Council space." Ryan frowned. Their deep cover operative rarely sent direct messages. It was too risky. "Put it through to my private terminal." In his quarters, Ryan read the encrypted message with growing alarm. The Council had detected unusual energy signatures in 3 systems where humans had established hidden colonies. Their investigation ships were already en route. Ryan immediately called Catherine. "Madam President, we have a problem. The Council is sending ships to the Orion, Cygnus, and Lyra colonies. We need to evacuate immediately." Catherine's face paled. "How long do we have?" "Days at most. I'm dispatching ships now, but some of our people may not make it out in time." Over the next week, a desperate evacuation took place. Most colonists escaped, but on Cygnus 3, a settlement of 15,000 people was still loading evacuation ships when the Council vessels arrived. From the bridge of the Vindication, Ryan watched the sensor feeds with horror. The Council ships surrounded the small colony world and deployed their weapons without warning or communication. The planet's surface erupted in flames as the Council weapons tore through the crust, just as they had done to Earth thousands of years before. "My God," whispered Linda Reeves. "They're still doing it. Still destroying entire worlds without hesitation." Ryan's hands clenched into fists. "Send word to President Wells. Tell her the Council has found one of our colonies and destroyed it. Completely. The time for waiting is over." When Catherine received the news, she called an emergency session of the government. As representatives from all human worlds gathered virtually, she delivered a speech that would change humanity's course, forever. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors watched as Earth was destroyed by a council that feared what we might become. Today they have found one of our worlds and once again shown that they will stop at nothing to erase us from existence. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. "We have been patient. We have been cautious. We have built our strength in secret, while they believed us extinct. But no more. The Council has begun hunting us again, and we will not hide any longer. The Council voted unanimously. Operation Reckoning would begin immediately. The entire human fleet was mobilized, and Victoria Wright's team worked around the clock to complete the Nexus Protocol ahead of schedule. As Ryan prepared his ships for war, he received one final message from their operative within the Council. The prophecy they feared is coming true. Humanity is becoming what they always dreaded, a force that could change the very nature of reality. Return soon, Admiral. It's time for Judgment Day. Ryan looked out at his assembled fleet, now numbering over 1,000 ships. In 10 months, they would strike at the heart of the Council, exactly 2,500 years after Earth's fall. The long wait was finally ending. Humanity was about to emerge from the shadows and bring justice to those who had tried to erase them from the galaxy. For Earth, he whispered. For all those we've lost. Exactly 3,000 years after Earth's destruction, the human fleet emerged from hyperspace around all 7 homeworlds of the Council's elder races. The warships appeared simultaneously, their weapons powered and ready. There was no warning, no time for the Council to prepare. On the bridge of the Vindication, Admiral Ryan Collins watched as the Council defense ships scrambled to respond. His flagship hovered above Centralis, the capital world of the Galactic Council. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Linda Reeves. The Council is hailing us on all frequencies. Ryan straightened his uniform. This moment had been planned for 3,000 years. Put them through. The main screen displayed the shocked face of High Chancellor Vortek, leader of the Council. The alien's 4 eyes widened in disbelief at the sight of a human. Impossible, Vortek whispered. Your kind was eliminated. Ryan's voice was calm but firm. 3,000 years ago, you judged humanity without trial and executed our world without mercy. Today, we return not just as survivors, but as judges. Across all 7 Council worlds, the same message was broadcast to every communication device. Billions of beings from hundreds of species watched as humans, a species thought extinct for millennia, revealed themselves. On Haven, President Catherine Wells and scientist Victoria Wright entered the Nexus Chamber. 100,000 volunteers were already connected to the neural interface system, their minds linked in preparation for the Nexus Protocol. Are you ready? Catherine asked Victoria. The system is stable, Victoria replied. Once activated, we'll be linked to every human using a neural interface across our territory. Nearly 10 million minds working as one. Catherine stepped onto the central platform and placed the neural crown on her head. Begin the protocol. The Nexus Protocol activated, connecting millions of human minds across thousands of light years. Catherine felt her consciousness expand as she joined with others. She could feel the presence of every human in the network, including those aboard the fleet facing the Council. Through their shared connection, she directed her thoughts to the Vindication. Her image appeared on the bridge as a hologram, standing beside Ryan. High Chancellor Vortek, Catherine said, her voice echoing with the power of millions of minds. I am President Catherine Wells of Haven, speaking for all humanity. We have watched your council for 3,000 years. We know your secrets, your crimes, and your lies. In the council's sacred chamber on Centralis, the 7 Archons, the leaders of each elder race, gathered in emergency session. Among them stood William Hayes, who had maintained his cover as a council official for centuries. Now, as humans, revealed themselves, he prepared for his final role. Grace Henderson, captain of the human strike team, led her soldiers through the council building. Their mission was to secure the sacred chamber and capture the Archons alive. As they approached, the chamber door's council guards moved to block them. Grace raised her hand and her team activated their neural interfaces. Moving with perfect coordination, they disabled the guards without killing them. Remember, Grace told her team, we're not here for revenge. We're here for justice. They burst into the sacred chamber to find the 7 Archons standing around a circular table. William Hayes stepped forward, finally revealing his true identity to his fellow Archons. What treachery is this? Demanded Archon Zul of the Mithran race. Not treachery, William replied. Justice. Through the Nexus protocol, Catherine projected her consciousness into the sacred chamber, appearing as a glowing figure that all could see. For 50,000 years, she said, your council has destroyed civilizations that showed signs of developing as we have. You eliminated dozens of species out of fear of a prophecy. She waved her hand, and holographic images appeared showing the destruction of Earth and other worlds throughout history. We have accessed your most secret archives, she continued. We know that you once possessed the same potential as humans. Your own collective consciousness, formed long ago, gave you a glimpse of a future you feared, a future where reality would be reshaped. The oldest Archon, Zelnar of the Vorathi, bowed his head. It is true. Our ancestors saw a vision of change so profound it terrified them. They chose to limit themselves rather than face that unknown. On the Vindication, Ryan received an urgent message. Admiral, the Council has activated weapon platforms around all 7 worlds. They're powering up planet killers. Ryan turned to Catherine's projection. They're preparing to fire on us. Catherine's eyes narrowed. Through the Nexus protocol, she could see the weapon platforms coming online. She could feel the minds of the Council operators, sense their fear and determination. Grand Inquisitor Kelthak has ordered the weapons activated, she reported. He refuses to surrender. In the sacred chamber, William Hayes moved quickly to a hidden panel in the wall. Kelthak has access to a doomsday device, a weapon that could destroy everything within 50 light years. He's preparing to activate it rather than surrender. Grace and her team rushed to stop Kelthak, racing through the corridors of the council building. They found him in a secure bunker, his hands on an ancient control panel. Step away from the controls, Grace ordered, her weapon aimed at the Inquisitor. Kelthak turned, his eyes filled with hatred. You should have remained extinct, humans. The prophecy cannot be allowed to fulfill. He slammed his hand down on the panel. Warning lights flashed as the doomsday sequence began. Grace fired her weapon, but Kelthak dodged and attacked her team. In the chaotic fight that followed, William Hayes appeared at the doorway. 300 years, William said, approaching Kelthak. I've lived among you for 3 centuries, waiting for this day. Kelthak snarled. Then you'll die with us all. William tackled Kelthak, pushing him away from the controls. Grace, deactivate the sequence. As Grace worked frantically at the control panel, William struggled with Kelthak. The Inquisitor drew a hidden blade and plunged it into William's side. The override code is 7 Alpha 9 Omega 3, William gasped, holding Kelthak in place despite his wound. Hurry! Grace entered the code with seconds to spare. The doomsday sequence aborted, and the weapon platforms powered down. William collapsed, his mission complete after centuries of deep cover. Throughout Council space, humanity's forces secured control of key installations without destroying any worlds. The Council fleet, outmatched by human technology, surrendered within hours. 1 week later, Catherine stood in the rebuilt Council chambers, now serving as the center of a new galactic assembly. Representatives from all species, including the former Council races, gathered to form a new government based on cooperation rather than control. 3,000 years ago, Catherine addressed the assembly, humanity faced extinction. Today, we could have chosen revenge. Instead, we choose a new beginning. She activated a holographic display showing the Nexus protocol in action. Millions of minds working together while maintaining their individuality. The prophecy the Council feared wasn't about destruction. It was about transformation. Together, we can create something better than any of us could imagine alone. On a memorial built from a fragment of Earth, carried by Samuel Wright's original ship, Catherine placed her hand on the ancient stone. Through the neural interface, she felt the connections to billions of minds across thousands of worlds. We returned, she whispered. We remembered, we rebuilt, and now we begin again, not in vengeance, but in hope. The prophecy hadn't been about the end of the Council. It had been about the beginning of something new, a future where minds could connect across the stars, where consciousness itself could evolve. Humanity hadn't just survived extinction. They had fulfilled their destiny.